Welcome to Threads of Truth, a podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we're going to unpack one of the greatest aviation mysteries of the 21st century, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. Think about it. How can a massive airliner, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 souls, simply vanish in the modern world? A world where, every phone call, every text, every transaction is tracked, where satellites constantly watch from above. It's a question that has haunted a generation, really, leaving this unsettling void in our hyper-connected reality. On March 8, 2014, this seemingly impossible event unfolded. A Boeing 777 en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing disappeared. What followed was a massive, unprecedented search effort, spanning oceans and continents, yet the plane and its passengers have never been fully found. Our mission in this exploration is to dissect the documented timeline, trace the scientific clues that emerge from, the thinnest strands of data, to scrutinize the myriad theories that rushed in to fill the terrifying vacuum of information, and to acknowledge the profound human impact of a truth that, for now, remains buried. So let's begin by walking through the factual timeline of that fateful night, minute by minute, according to the official records. What did investigators know, and when did they know it, as this bewildering event began to unfold?
It truly is a perplexing and frankly disturbing sequence of events. It's a masterclass in how a modern aircraft can effectively become a ghost. MH370 was, as you said, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It was operating a Boeing 777-200ER, which is a highly reliable and widely used long-haul aircraft. Its scheduled route was Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, heading to Beijing, China. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members, making a total of 239 people, all embarking on what should have been just a routine overnight flight.
Just a normal flight.
Exactly. And the timeline of its disappearance on March 8, 2014, it begins quite normally. At 12:41 a.m. Malaysian time, or MYT, the plane took off from Kuala Lumpur, cleared for its northbound journey. Everything appeared routine, standard procedure, nothing unusual at all.
Okay.
Then a crucial moment arrived at 1:19 a.m. MYT. This was the last verbal communication from the cockpit to Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control. The words were, "Good night, Malaysian 370.
Good night, just like that.
Just like that. A seemingly innocuous farewell, a polite and common sign-off before they typically hand over to Vietnamese airspace. It was later confirmed this came from the co-pilot, Farik Abdul Hamid. Unremarkable in isolation, but it precedes a very, very significant event just 2 minutes later, an event that would rewrite aviation history.
2 minutes? What happened?
At 1:21 a.m. MYT, something profound happened. The plane's transponder. This is essentially its identity beacon sending out crucial signals to air traffic control. Well, it was manually turned off.
Manually.
Mm-hmm.
Not a system failure.
That's the critical word here. Manually. It implies a deliberate, conscious action by someone in the cockpit. The transponder transmits, a unique code, altitude, speed, other identifiers that let civilian controllers see the plane on their radar and tell it apart from others. When it's off, the aircraft effectively becomes invisible to conventional air traffic control. It just stopped actively identifying itself.
Wow. Okay. So that's intentional.
It points very strongly to an intentional act, yes, not a malfunction. And that fundamentally changed the nature of its flight right there.
Okay, so the transponder's off. What happens next?
Just a minute after that, at 1:02 a.m. MYT, the plane crossed from Malaysian into Vietnamese airspace. As you'd expect, Vietnamese air traffic control noticed almost immediately that the plane had disappeared from their radar screens. Their primary means of tracking, the transponder, was no longer broadcasting. It was gone from their screens.
So they knew instantly something was wrong.
They knew it was off radar, yes. Then we have another critical system, the ACARS. That stands for Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System. This system is designed for sending various messages between the aircraft and ground systems, things like operational data, engine performance reports, maintenance updates. It's like an automated digital lifeline.
Right, like the plane talking to the ground automatically.
Precisely. At 1:30 a.m. MYT, MH370's ACARS sent its last message. Then significantly, at 1:37 a.m. MYT, an ACARS message failed to send. Now that suggests a potential disruption or perhaps even a deliberate disengagement of that system as well, shortly after the transponder was turned off.
So another system goes silent.
It indicates a further systematic severing of communication links. First the voice, then the transponder, then likely ACARS.
Okay, this is getting stranger and stranger. Where does it go from there?
Well, now here's where it truly gets astonishing and incredibly puzzling. It shifts the narrative from just a disappearance to something, well, far more sinister or deliberate seeming. At 2:22 a.m. MYT, Malaysian military radar, which operates independently of civilian ATC and doesn't rely on transponders for detection.
That's primary radar, right? Bouncing signals off the plane itself.
Exactly. Primary radar. It showed the plane flying west across the Malay Peninsula. This was a significant, unexpected, and sustained change in direction, completely off its scheduled course to Beijing. It then made another turn, heading north.
So it didn't just vanish, it actively flew away from its destination.
For nearly an hour, yes, flying in the wrong direction and executing turns. This strongly indicates that the aircraft was under deliberate control. Someone was flying the plane.
And the military tracked this.
Yes, until 2:25 a.m. MYT. The plane was last detected by Malaysian military radar over the Andaman Sea. That marks its last known radar location. After this point, for all intents and purposes, it became a true ghost flight, a spectral presence no longer visible to any conventional tracking system.
So civilian radar goes dark early on, but military radar picks it up, making this inexplicable deliberate turn, flying off course for nearly an hour. Then poof, it vanishes completely from even military radar. This is where the story goes from baffling to almost unbelievable. How on earth did investigators even begin to piece together where it might have gone when it simply disappeared from all conventional tracking? It's like searching for a needle in the world's largest haystack, but, without even knowing which haystack it's in.
You've hit on the core challenge precisely. It seems impossible, right? But the key to figuring out the plane's trajectory after it disappeared from all radar lay in something entirely different. The Inmarsat satellite data. This wasn't radar at all. It was the plane's automated satellite communication system, a system separate from both the transponder and ACARS.
Another system.
Yes, think of it like a very basic, persistent heartbeat. Even though no voice or data messages were being actively sent, the plane's system continued to ping or handshake with a satellite operated by the company Inmarsat. It was essentially just saying, I'm still here and I'm connected to the network, even if it wasn't transmitting specific location data like GPS coordinates.
Just confirming it was still powered up and linked to the satellite.
Exactly. Now, these pings weren't directly transmitting GPS coordinates, but analysts were able to deduce incredibly valuable information from them. It was quite brilliant, really. They focused on two key pieces of metadata, the burst time offset, or BTO, and the burst frequency offset, or BFO.
Okay, technical terms. What do you mean?
Right. The BTO measured the time it took for a signal to travel from the aircraft to the satellite and back. This allowed them to calculate the distance between the plane and the satellite at the time of each ping. So this data would define a series of arcs, or rings, on a map centered on the satellite's position. The plane had to be somewhere on that ring at that specific time.
Okay, so distance but not direction.
Correct. That's where the BFO comes in. Even more remarkably, the BFO measured the change in the frequency of the satellite signal due to the aircraft's movement. It's a phenomenon called the Doppler effect, just like how a train whistle changes pitch as it moves towards or away from you.
Ah, right. I get that.
By analyzing these subtle frequency shifts, the analysts could determine the plane's speed and direction relative to the satellite. This Doppler analysis allowed them to refine those arcs, pinpointing the likely direction the plane was moving along each arc.
That's incredible. So putting the distance and the relative direction together.
Exactly. What this combined BTO and BFO data revealed was astonishing and, frankly, a testament to incredible analytical ingenuity. The plane flew for an additional 6 hours after its last radar contact.
6 hours.
6 hours, consistently traveling south. This meant it wasn't spiraling out of control or crashing shortly after vanishing from radar. It was continuing a sustained, controlled flight path for a very long time. This Inmarsat data, despite being indirect and, relying on metadata rather than direct tracking, provide the most crucial clues about the plane's final resting place. Still inconclusive in some ways, but crucial. It pointed strongly to the plane ultimately crashing into the extremely remote and deep waters of the southern Indian Ocean.
Wow. Without that satellite data.
Without it, the search would have been entirely blind, a true shot in the dark across vast oceans. It was the only thread they had left.
That satellite data, however indirect, led to this enormous undertaking, a search on an unprecedented scale. I remember seeing maps of the search area, and it was just mind-bogglingly vast. The logistical nightmare alone must have been immense. Can you walk us through the challenges and, well, the outcomes of these search operations?
The search for MH370 truly stands as one of the largest, most expensive, and most challenging in aviation history. No question. The initial search efforts, immediately after the plane's disappearance, were actually focused on the South China Sea.
Right, because that's where it was last seen on civilian radar.
Exactly. And there was still initial uncertainty about its unexpected turn back west. So, this early misdirection, while understandable given the extremely limited and confusing information at the time, unfortunately led to significant wasted efforts. Days of frantic searching in the wrong location.
Okay, so then the Inmarsat data comes in.
Right. Once the Inmarsat data became available and was thoroughly analyzed, the focus shifted dramatically all the way to the southern Indian Ocean. And this area is, well, notoriously remote. Thousands of kilometers from land, incredibly deep, some trenches plunge over 7,000 meters, and it's subject to some of the world's most challenging weather conditions. Powerful storms, massive swells.
Just unimaginable conditions to search in.
Absolutely. Imagine searching an area larger than many countries in depths where sunlight never reaches for something the size of an airliner, which might be broken into pieces. The challenges were simply colossal.
Who led the search? It must have been international.
It was primarily led by Australia, given the location, but with significant international collaboration. Countries like China, Malaysia, the US, and many others provided specialized ships, long-range aircraft, and deep ocean expertise. It covered an astonishing area of over 120,000 square kilometers. Just to give you an idea, that's an expanse nearly half the size of the United Kingdom.
Wow. And the cost?
The cost was equally staggering. It ultimately exceeded 160 million US dollars, making it by far one of the most expensive search operations in history.
So much effort, so much money. What did they find?
They employed cutting-edge technology, specialized sonar systems like side-scan sonar and multi-beam echo sounders to map the seabed in incredible detail, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, like the Bluefin 21, which could dive to extreme depths. These tools meticulously scan vast swaths of the ocean floor, navigating complex underwater topography, towering seamounts, abyssal plains. But despite this monumental effort, utilizing every available technological and human resource, the search was ultimately unsuccessful in locating the main wreckage. Nothing from the main body of the plane. After years of relentless searching, facing immense psychological and physical strain on the crews, it was officially called off in January 2017. The vastness, the depth, the sheer unforgiving nature of that part of the ocean simply proved too formidable.
It's just incredible that despite that monumental search, the actual wreckage remains elusive. Which in itself is baffling, isn't it? Given the resources poured into it.
Yeah.
But we do have some physical pieces of the puzzle that washed ashore thousands of miles away from the primary search area. These must have been crucial for investigators, offering tangible proof where before there was only data.
They were absolutely critical. They provided tangible, irrefutable proof of the plane's fate, bridging that gap between abstract satellite data and, physical reality. The first and most significant confirmed piece of debris from MH370 was a flaperon.
A flaperon, that's part of the wing, right?
Yes, exactly. It's a control surface on the trailing edge of an aircraft's wing, used primarily to control the plane's lift and roll, especially during takeoff and landing. This particular piece washed ashore on Reunion Island in July 2015. Reunion is a French island way over in the Indian Ocean, located thousands of miles west of the primary search area.
Thousands of miles away. How did they know it was from MH370?
Well, the discovery was incredibly important because oceanographic drift analysis models studying ocean currents show that debris from the hypothesized crash zone in southern Indian Ocean could plausibly reach Reunion Island within that time frame. And crucially, the part had serial numbers and manufacturing details that allowed investigators to confirm it belonged to the specific Boeing 777 that operated as MH370.
So that was the first solid proof.
That was the first solid piece of physical evidence linking the plane's disappearance definitively to a crash in the Indian Ocean. A huge moment.
Were there others?
Yes, following this breakthrough, other pieces of debris were found on various beaches across the Indian Ocean coastline, places like Mozambique, Tanzania, Mauritius. These included a fragment of a wing flap, specifically part of an outboard flap, and a piece of a horizontal stabilizer, which is part of the tail assembly. While these subsequent pieces weren't always as definitively confirmed immediately as the flaparound, detailed investigations using unique part numbers, manufacturing details, material analysis, they concluded that these items were almost certainly from MH370.
Almost certainly. So, pretty conclusive.
Very conclusive. This rigorous forensic work, matching specific components to the manufacturing batch of the lost Boeing 777, it really cemented the understanding that the plane had indeed come down in that vast ocean.
Okay, but these pieces,
Yeah.
they confirmed where it ended, but not how or why.
Right. Exactly. That's the painful truth. While these findings conclusively confirmed the plane did crash into the southern Indian Ocean, they unfortunately did not pinpoint the main wreckage itself. And crucially, they didn't provide the critical data that would have been contained in the flight recorders, the black boxes. More importantly, they couldn't provide clear answers about what happened on board the aircraft in those final hours, or, the biggest question of all, why those events transpired.
Right.
They told us where it ended up, generally speaking, but not how it got there in terms of human actions or mechanical failure or the ultimate motive. The vast majority of the plane and those vital black boxes remain submerged, withholding the definitive answers.
So we have this meticulously reconstructed flight path based on satellite pings, corroborated by debris found thousands of miles away, all pointing to a catastrophic end in the southern Indian Ocean. But as you said, the why remains completely elusive. With so little definitive physical evidence from the main wreckage and the vastness of the ocean holding its secrets, the vacuum of information was just quickly filled by theories, wasn't it? From official investigations to the furthest reaches of the internet, what are the most prominent ideas about what happened to MH370? Because, when facts are scarce, speculation thrives. And this case is the ultimate example.
Indeed, this case is a prime example of how, in the absence of complete answers, the human mind, fueled by grief, by curiosity, by a need for closure, will generate explanations. Several theories have gained prominence, each with its own set of arguments and, crucially, its own set of challenges and unanswered questions.
Let's start with the one often mentioned by officials.
Right. One of the most prominent and often considered, let's say, most plausible by some officials and analysts is the pilot suicide theory. The core idea here is that one of the pilots, usually the captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, intentionally diverted the plane and crashed it.
What's the evidence supporting that?
The supporting evidence is quite compelling on a technical level. We've discussed it. The manual turning off of the transponder, followed by the likely disengagement of ACARs, and then the deliberate, complex alteration of the plane's course, flying west across the Malay Peninsula, seemingly avoiding ground radar detection, and then turning south towards nowhere. These actions strongly suggest a human intervention in the cockpit steering the plane. It points away from purely accidental scenarios, like a sudden catastrophic mechanical failure that would likely leave the plane flying straight until it ran out of fuel.
And the flight simulator.
Yes, that's another chilling piece. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah had a sophisticated flight simulator at his home. Data recovered from it reportedly showed he had practiced a flight path that included a simulated trajectory ending deep in the southern Indian Ocean. A route eerily similar to the Inmarsat data's reconstruction of MH370's final hours.
That seems very pointed.
It does. It creates this profound chasm between technical evidence pointing towards deliberate action and the utter absence of a known human motive. It's a gap that fuels endless, unresolved speculation.
But what are the arguments against it? The gaps.
Well, the most significant gap is motive. There is no official conclusive evidence, no note, no documented history of mental health issues, no clear reason to suggest that Captain Shah was suicidal or had any motive for such an unthinkable act. His family, his friends have consistently and vehemently denied the possibility of his involvement. They portray him as a professional, calm, stable individual. So while the technical evidence strongly points to deliberate human action, the why remains a profound, painful unknown.
Okay. What's another major theory?
Another significant theory is the fire or system failure theory, often linked to the concept of crew incapacitation. This suggests an onboard fire, or perhaps a major mechanical failure, may be caused by issues with lithium-ion batteries in the cargo hold, which are A known fire risk in aviation could have incapacitated the crew.
So smoke or lack of oxygen knocks them out.
Potentially. If the crew became unconscious due to smoke or hypoxia, the plane might have continued to fly on autopilot, a ghost flight scenario, until it simply ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. This would explain the lack of communication after the initial sign-off.
But does that fit the flight path?
That's the major gap in this theory. It struggles to explain the manual shutdown of the transponder and the deliberate complex changes in the flight's course. If the crew were simply incapacitated early on, it's very difficult to account for the precise and intentional actions required to turn off specific systems and then navigate the plane so far off course, executing those specific turns. A simple incapacitation scenario would more likely see the plane continuing on its programmed flight path towards Beijing until something catastrophic happened or it ran out of fuel.
Right. The deliberate actions are hard to explain away.
Very hard. Then there's the hijacking or interference theory. This is generally less accepted by investigators. It suggests the plane was taken over by a group of unknown individuals, either physically boarding the plane or, as some speculate, perhaps even remotely through cyber interference, though that's highly contested.
Why is it less accepted?
The main difficulty is the complete absence of typical hijacking indicators. There was no ransom note, no mayday call, no communication from alleged hijackers, and critically, no group ever claimed responsibility for the act. Without any identifiable motive or communication, it's very difficult to substantiate this theory with any credible evidence. It just doesn't fit the pattern of previous hijackings.
Okay. And then you get to the more fringe ideas, right?
Yes. Then you have theories that veer further into the realm of conspiracy, like the Diego Garcia conspiracy. This particular theory claims the plane was perhaps shot down by military forces, or maybe that it secretly landed or was forced to land at the U.S. military base on Diego Garcia, which is an island in the Indian Ocean.
What's the basis for that?
It's largely characterized as a conspiracy theory because it lacks verifiable evidence. It relies more on speculation, distrust of official narratives, and trying to connect unrelated dots rather than concrete facts. There's simply no credible evidence that has ever emerged to support it, and the logistics of secretly landing a 777 there or a cover-up of a shoot-down remain highly implausible to investigators.
And finally, you mentioned people doubting the data itself.
Yes, and this is quite pervasive. There's significant data skepticism among many individuals and online communities. They often express doubt about the entire satellite-based reconstruction. Their argument is that it's based on very limited metadata, just these electronic handshakes and signal timing analysis, rather than direct, continuous GPS tracking of the aircraft like we have with modern systems.
Because the systems providing that were turned off.
Exactly. So this inherent limitation, this reliance on inference rather than direct observation, combined with the profound lack of physical wreckage and the black boxes, contributes significantly to public distrust of the official narratives. It fuels a constant search for alternative explanations online because people inherently seek definitive, direct evidence, and in this case, they primarily have complex inferences drawn from faint signals.
Beyond the specific theories, this mystery truly captured the public's imagination, didn't it? It became a global obsession. I mean, it felt like everyone, from seasoned aviation experts to armchair detectives online, was talking about it, trying to solve it. How has MH370 manifested in pop culture and fueled this online speculation even years later, even without major new evidence?
It's absolutely fascinating to observe the cultural footprint of MH370 and how it continues to evolve even a decade later. You're right, the profound lack of definitive, satisfying answers surrounding this disappearance naturally fostered significant public distrust of official narratives. When the experts and the authorities can't provide a clear, conclusive why, people naturally seek alternative explanations. And this created incredibly fertile ground for online sleuthing communities, a phenomenon we've seen grow exponentially in recent years with various cases.
Like the Reddit groups.
Exactly. Notably, on platforms like Reddit, dedicated communities, particularly the RMH370 subreddit, emerged within days of the disappearance. Individuals, often with no formal investigative training, but with an incredible passion for data analysis for problem solving, attempted to analyze publicly available data, pore over satellite images, propose new theories, find overlooked clues. It was a remarkable, unprecedented example of collective online investigation. It showed both the immense power of a crowdsourced approach to problem solving, but also critically, the potential pitfalls, unverified information, speculative conclusions gaining traction, sometimes causing real pain for the families who are just seeking closure.
Double-edged sword, then.
Definitely. You had people meticulously examining ocean currents, radar data fragments, even the pilot's personal life, trying to connect dots where perhaps no connection existed. But their dedication, their drive to find an answer, was undeniable.
And in wider culture, documentaries, books.
Oh, yes. In terms of broader pop culture, MH370 rapidly became symbolic of modern uncertainty and our technological limits. It presented this profoundly unsettling idea that in our hyper-connected, data-rich world, something as large and seemingly trackable as a Boeing 777 could just vanish without a trace. This resonates with those primal fears we talked about, fear of the unknown, of helplessness in the face of the inexplicable. It highlights the fragility of our reliance on technology. It's a chilling narrative that speaks to a deeper unease about control and visibility in the 21st century.
So it tapped into something deeper.
I think so. Consequently, the case has inspired numerous documentaries, major network productions, Netflix series, countless independent ones, as well as numerous books, articles, investigative pieces, each attempting to grapple with the mystery or propose new solutions. And even today, years later, it continues to be a subject of intense discussion and evolving speculation on social media platforms like TikTok, where short-form videos dissect theories and keep the mystery alive for a new generation. This ensures the enigma of MH370 remains active. It continues to evolve in the public consciousness. Some mysteries are just too compelling, too unsettling to let go of. It's truly become a modern myth in a way, an enduring testament to the human need for answers.
So, having walked through the facts, the highly advanced but still indirect scientific clues from the satellite data, and the myriad theories, some plausible, some less so, that have attempted to fill the void, where do the strengths and gaps in the official explanations lie for you? Because it feels like we have so much data, yet still so few definitive answers.
That's precisely the paradox of MH370, isn't it? An overload of some kinds of data and a complete lack of the most crucial kinds. The strengths of the official explanation primarily rest on that Inmarsat satellite data. It provides incredibly compelling scientific evidence for the plane's general trajectory into the southern Indian Ocean. It's derived from sophisticated analysis of those signal timings and frequencies, the BTO and BFO data, and it consistently points to that remote region.
And the debris confirms that, right?
Exactly. That trajectory is then powerfully supported by the confirmed debris findings, the flaperon, the other pieces that washed ashore. The fact that these pieces drifted to locations precisely consistent with the Inmarsat predicted crash zone adds significant, almost irrefutable credibility to the satellite data's accuracy regarding the plane's eventual demise in that area. Furthermore, the evidence of manual disabling of the communication systems, the transponder, possibly ACARs, strongly points to deliberate action in the cockpit. That aligns with theories of intentional human intervention. These are the anchors of the official narrative.
Okay, those are the strengths. What about the gaps? It feels like there's one massive one.
There is. The truly enduring gap in the official explanation remains the why. We have a very strong indication of where it likely ended up, and compelling clues about how it got there in terms of the technical actions, the deliberate changes in course and communication. But the motive for those actions in the cockpit, the driving force behind this deliberate act, that is still profoundly unknown.
And without the wreckage.
Exactly. Without the main wreckage, and crucially without the black boxes, the flight data recorder, detailing every action and system status, and the cockpit voice recorder, capturing the final conversations and sounds, the precise sequence of events leading to its crash, and the ultimate reason for these deliberate actions simply cannot be definitively established. This profound, agonizing lack of a definitive why is the chasm that continues to fuel the ongoing speculation, the public distrust, and the constant, often desperate search for alternative explanations. It leaves a deep, unsettling void, especially for the families who need closure more than anything.
Why do you think this particular case, more than other air disasters, has so deeply captured the world's imagination and continues to haunt us to this day? I mean, tragedies happen, sadly, but none quite have this grip. It's almost become part of our collective consciousness.
It's true. MH370 really struck a chord globally, far more than many other aviation tragedies, and its hold on our imagination persists. I think there are several key reasons for its enduring fascination, each layering on top of the last. Firstly, there's that primal fear of vanishing. It's a chilling, almost unthinkable reminder that even with all our advanced technology, the GPS in our pockets, constant connectivity, pervasive surveillance, a massive passenger jet, this symbol of modern transport and safety can simply disappear without a trace. This triggers deep, almost primal fears of the unknown, of helplessness. It highlights the terrifying fragility of modern life. In an era where everything is supposedly trackable, the complete disappearance of MH370 is deeply unsettling. It challenges our fundamental assumptions about safety and control.
It feels like it shouldn't be possible.
Exactly. Secondly, the case starkly highlighted our data dependence and its limits. We live in a world that assumes constant data streams, where every interaction leaves a digital footprint. Yet MH370 demonstrated a paradoxical vulnerability. That even with vast data streams, the deliberate disabling of just a few key systems can still render the most advanced technology utterly blind. It exposed a significant blind spot and vulnerability in global flight tracking at the time. We had systems, but they could be turned off, leading to this massive, hours-long blind spot over vast ocean expanses. That revelation was a profound wake-up call.
A wake-up call that led to discussions about transparency.
Yes, that leads directly to the third point, aviation transparency. The disappearance spurred intense global discussions about the need for greater transparency and, crucially, real-time tracking in aviation, particularly for flights over remote oceanic areas. It became undeniably clear that relying on a manually activated transponder as the primary tracking method was simply not good enough for modern global air travel. The world demanded better, and the industry had to respond.
And underlying it all, the human element.
And finally, and perhaps most powerfully, yes, there's the immense human cost. This is not just a technological mystery, it's a profound human tragedy. 239 people vanished. Their families are left with no closure, no graves, and an agonizing, indefinite wait for answers. This immense emotional toll, this unresolved grief and lack of a final resting place, resonates deeply with people worldwide. It's the sheer injustice of not knowing, the absence of a proper farewell, that truly keeps the story alive and profoundly sad in our collective consciousness. It's a story of missing people, not just a missing plane.
Has this profound incident, this unprecedented disappearance, actually led to significant changes or improvements in how global aviation operates? Did anything good, if we can possibly call it that, truly come out of such a terrible tragedy?
Absolutely, yes. The disappearance of MH370 undeniably spurred significant necessary changes and recommendations for global flight tracking protocols. It served as a stark, unavoidable demonstration of a major blind spot in how modern aircraft were tracked, especially over those vast, remote ocean areas. It exposed a vulnerability that the aviation world simply could no longer ignore.
So what specifically changed?
Well, before MH370, the primary method for tracking civilian aircraft relied heavily on those transponder signals and ground-based radar, which, as we discussed, have limited range over oceans. ACARS provided some operational data, but it wasn't designed for continuous real-time tracking of precise position if something went wrong or systems were shut down intentionally. The fact that a plane could simply vanish for hours without any reliable automated position reporting was a massive oversight that this tragedy brought into sharp, painful focus.
So they fixed that.
In direct response, international aviation bodies, most notably the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, that's the UN agency, setting global air safety standards, they developed new standards and recommended practices. One key development was the mandate for autonomous distress tracking. This means aircraft are now required to have systems that can automatically transmit location information at frequent intervals, typically every minute, even if other communication systems are disabled or fail, or if the aircraft deviates significantly from its flight path.
So it reports its position no matter what.
That's the idea. This automatic transmission ensures that if an aircraft experiences distress or goes off course, its position can be tracked continuously without needing human intervention from the cockpit. Another crucial change involves real-time flight position monitoring. There's been a significant push for more continuous and robust tracking systems, often using satellite-based surveillance, that provide airlines and air traffic control with near real-time updates of an aircraft's position, regardless of whether it's over land or sea.
So it shouldn't happen again.
The aim is specifically to prevent a similar event where a modern passenger plane could vanish so completely again, leaving no trace for hours. The industry learned a very painful lesson about the vulnerabilities of its tracking systems and has since worked diligently to close those gaps, making our skies, in theory at least, safer and more transparent.
The threads of truth in the MH370 case are tangled in such a complex web of technology, deliberate human action, and the vast, unforgiving expanse of the ocean. The enduring reality is the pain of the families still waiting for definitive answers, a truth that remains buried, it seems, at the bottom of the sea. It's a powerful story about the limits of technology, the mysteries of human intent, and the devastating consequences of an unsolved mystery. What stands out to you from this perplexing case? Do you find yourself leaning towards one theory more than another, or does the sheer profound mystery itself continue to captivate you, leaving you to ponder the immense power of the unknown? Join the conversation on our social media platforms using hashtag Threads of Truth and hashtag MH370. Next time on Threads of Truth, we head to the UK to explore the baffling 2009 disappearance of Chef Claudia Lawrence, a case full of clues, contradictions, and still no closure after all these years. Thank you for joining us for this exploration. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and perhaps leave a review for Threads of Truth wherever you listen. Your support helps us continue to shed light on these unsolved cases and search for the truth, one thread at a time.